Hello folks. So in this video I'm going to cover how to pre-process data and what are some of the reasons we get this missing data, how to identify the missing values, and various ways using which we can handle the missing values. And when it comes to this particular step of pre-processing the data, it is very important step before we build any machine learning models. So folks, this is Nitin, who is determined to democratize the artificial intelligence, big data, Hadoop, and cloud computing to the world. And with this aim, I will be creating the associated content and going to publish periodically, and in fact made it available for you. So you can subscribe to my channel to get the latest updates regarding the hottest technologies of the 21st century. So let's move on to missing values. Okay, let me introduce you to the missing values. So missing values is the common problem in the machine learning world, and we need to, we need certain ways to cater this problem in order to make your data set good for a machine learning model. And data scientists generally spend most of their time, in fact, 80% of their time cleaning this data. Okay, so you can now think of it how important step this is. Okay, so majority of work goes into this pre-processing step, right? And in fact the cleaning of the data step. So before we dive into the code or write some piece of code, it's important to understand sources of missing data. And I'm going to give you some typical reasons why this data gets missed from a data set. Okay, so the number one reason is if a user forgets to fill in certain values in the field column values, basically. Let us say there is a relational database system where the user is entering the values manually, and if he basically forgets to enter the value for a specific column, then it will result in a missing value. Okay, the second reason is when we basically transfer the data manually in a legacy databases, right? So let us say if I'm transferring the data basically let us say from Oracle to Teradata, and I'm doing this activity manually, then there are chances that some of the data might get lost. Okay, due to some errors or some other specific reasons, data might get lost. Okay, so this is the second reason of having these missing values in the data set or database. Then there are certain programmatical errors. So sometimes when we write program and due to certain bugs, some of the column might get some junk values or the values which are not appropriate for that column. So that is the third reason. Then fourth reason is let us say if a user chose not to fill out a field tied to their beliefs about how the result would be used or interpreted. Okay, so these are some of the reasons, and as you can see, some of these sources are just simple random mistakes. Other times there can be a deeper reason why data is missing, and it's important to understand these different types of missing data values from a statistical point of view. And the type of missing data will basically influence how you deal with filling in these missing values. So let's take a closer look at the data now. So I have one CSV file called a real estate data CSV file, in which there are certain columns, and let me show you the column values here. So here, in fact, this is not the one. This is the one. Okay. So here you can see that there are a handful of records, and there are a few columns here, right? Column names. Okay. And there are only a handful of observations here. And you can see that they are missing values as well present for these columns. And other places there are some values which are not missing, but are not correctly entered here. So this is a text column, but here you can see the numeric value, right? Here as well, similarly, here also. And there is a NaN, which is not a number value, right? So these are some of the values which I'm going to discuss in detail. Okay. So let me tell you what these column names signifies. Okay. So PID is property ID. Okay. So like the property, basically a unique ID representing each individual property. ST num is the street number, and the ST name is street name. Unoccupied is the field which represent if the residence is owner occupied or not. Okay. Num bedroom, as the name suggests, is the number of bedrooms, and num bath is the number of bathrooms. Square feet is the basically area of the property. So let's discuss about the type of missing values here. So first one in the list is standard missing values, and standard missing values are the one that pandas can detect, basically. Pandas, which is a library which we discussed earlier. So let's take the one of the column, and in this case I'm going to take street num column. So here you can see that there is one row, this row, where we have a missing value, and then that is the third row has missing value, and seventh row has a value represented by NA, okay, which is not applicable. And let's explore this column. So we will be writing some piece of code here. So let me open the Jupyter notebook. So let's first import our data file, right, which is this file, sample real estate data, right? Sample real estate data. Okay, so let's read this file or import this file, and the variable which will hold this data or is called data, and it is a data frame basically. So let's invoke the pandas method read CSV, and then we will we'll provide the name of the file, which is sample real estate data. So sample underscore real estate underscore data dot CSV. Okay, and then in the next line what we are going to do is, so I'm going to write another statement where we will be checking how many basically values or the rows in this particular column are null. Okay, so the way we do it here is we'll print the values of data, and we will be basically invoking this individual column, which is street number, right? So in the solid brackets we will say street num. Okay, dot is null. Okay, and then press shift enter here. Right, so now you can see this particular column, street number column values here. So you can see there are boolean values, false, true, etc. Right, so here you can see that for the third row, okay, let me show you the data. So the third row was having a blank or the missing value, and the seventh row was having the NA mentioned. Okay, so for both the locations or the spaces, we have true here. So true means that there are missing values. Okay, and pandas will recognize both empty cells and NA types as missing values. Okay, so this is the way we do it, and this is the way we identify the standard missing values. Now the second type of missing values in the list are non-standard missing values, and these are the missing values that have different formats. So let me take a look at another column, which is number of bedrooms column. Okay, so let me type here num bedrooms. Okay, so num bedrooms. Let me show you the data first. So num bedrooms, you can see that for the first, second, third row, okay, sixth row, and the last row, right? You can see that it is that the values are mentioned as NA, right? So in this column we can see that there are basically three missing values, right, represented by n/a, NA, and then small na. Okay, and from the previous section we figured out that pandas will recognize NA as a missing value. But what about non-standard missing values, right? So pandas recognize, let me run this statement first. Okay, so you can see that this NA was pretty well identified as missing value by pandas, but not the other ones, these non-standard ones, right? These can be typo. I can type NA as NA/n/a or small na, right? But pandas can only identify the capital NA as the missing value, right? So there has to be some way we can basically treat these kind of missing values, right? And let us say, so as I mentioned earlier, these values are unfortunately not recognized by pandas. So possible reasons are that there are users manually entering data, and maybe I like to use n/a as NA value, and you may like to use small na as representing the NA values. So it's a perception. How can we enter this value basically? And the easy way to detect these kind of non-standard values or from detect these kind of values or various format is to put them in a list. Okay, and then we can import the data, and pandas will recognize them in a right way. Okay, so what essentially I'm trying to say here is we will put all these values, non-standard values as well as standard value, in a particular list. We'll create a list, and then during reading this data file, we can provide this list which can basically suggest during reading of this data that these are the missing values, and these are the values represented as missing. So wherever you encounter these kind of values in the data set, you should replace it by you should treat it as a missing value basically. So this is the ideal way to do it. Okay, and the way we want to use it, let me take an example and then you will be able to know what I'm trying to say. So let me create a list, okay, wherein I will mention all the non-standard value and standard values here. Okay, second one was NA, right? In fact there is no need to mention standard value, because obviously that's a standard and pandas is already recognizing it, so there is no need to mention the standard value. In fact, let me include only non-standard values. Okay, and another one is, let us say, hyphen. Okay, that was also one of the value, right? If I see that here you can see that hyphen was also mentioned. So this is also a non-standard value. This one is also non-standard. This one is also non-standard, right? So we will create the list of non-standard values, and then we'll pass this list while importing the data. Okay, so here we have created the list. Now what we will do is, we will, while importing this CSV file, we will mention the name of the list basically. Okay, so here we will provide the parameter which actually identifies the missing values is NA value. So this is one of the parameter in this method, okay, which basically identifies any missing non-standard missing values, and we can pass those non-standard missing values in the form of a list. So missing value, okay, and then when we type data, press shift enter. Okay, now you can see that it is identified as not a number, NaN, here also, here also. And now let me type this command once again to identify how many null values are there, or the missing values are there in the data set, and particularly for this number of bedrooms column. So let me type this and press shift enter here. Now you can see that the missing values are identified correctly as missing values are identified correctly here, and these are represented by Boolean value true, right? So number of bedroom, third row, sixth row, third row, sixth row, you can see it is identified as the Boolean value true. That means there is a missing value. Similarly for this row as well, right? So it has identified the standard value NA, and the pandas has actually identified that, but for the non-standard values we pass those non-standard values manually while reading the data set or while importing the CSV file. Okay, so this is the way we basically treat the non-standard values, right? Then there is a third form of missing values, third type of missing values. Okay, let me first create some cells so that you will be able to see. Okay, so third type of missing values are unexpected missing values, and in this category, let's say our feature is expected to be a string, but there is a numeric type value entered over there. Then technically this is also a missing value. Okay, so let's take a look at the owner occupied column, and you will be able to see what I'm trying to say here. So let me first run this statement for own occupied or owner occupied column. Okay, own occupied, press shift enter. Here you can see that for the 7th row the value is mentioned as true, right? Let me show you the column value as well. So at 7th row we don't have any value, so there is a missing value here. But this one, you can see here, this is a text column, okay, or the string column, a string type of column, but there is a numeric value entered here, right? And ideally this should be treated as missing value, but here it is not being treated as missing value. You can see that false is mentioned here, right? The Boolean value is false, that means it is not a missing value. Okay, but technically it is a missing value because there is a numeric value in it, right? Let me create some cells. So in order to basically detect these kind of missing values, we need to write a custom Python code sometimes, and I'm going to show you how can we detect these kind of missing values, right? Where we are expecting a text or string value, but the value entered is in numeric form. So we can create a custom code. So we'll say, let us say count equals to 0, initialize the value of count as 0. Okay, and then we will type for row in data. Okay, and the column name is own occupied, right? we'll say try accept is nothing but a way to do some error handling. That's why I'm including try here. So if the code is successful, then we will see the expected output. Otherwise, whatever mentioned in the accept section, it will catch the error and do some processing according to the whatever mentioned in the accept section. So try, and then we'll say int row. I will explain each and every line right in a bit. Data.log, and then we'll say count on occupied equals to np.nan, and then in the accept we'll say pass and count plus equals to 1. Okay, all right. So in the in this code we are looping through each entry in owner occupied column. Okay, and to try and change the entry to an integer, we are using int row, int in brackets row, and if the value can be changed to an integer, we change the entry to a missing value using numpy's np.nan. And on the other hand, if it can't be changed to an integer, we will pass, and basically we pass and keep going. So you will notice that I use try and accept value error, right, as I mentioned earlier. So it should be value error. Oh, I forgot to mention value. Okay. So as I told you earlier, this is called exception handling, and we use this to handle errors. So if we were to try and change an entry into an integer and it couldn't be changed, then a value error would be returned, and the code would not and the code would stop. To deal with this, we use exceptional handling to recognize these errors and keep going. Another important bit of bit of code is the .loc method. This is the preferred pandas method for modifying entries in place. Okay, so this was about treating missing values, right? So let me run this particular cell, and I just ran this cell. Right, let me see the data first. Okay, looks like it has defined all the values as NaN. Let me take a look at it. So looks like I don't know, there was some garbage value or something, because I reran this cell once again, and now we can see that it has been so there was some garbage issue probably, due to which it was not giving correct result. But now when I reran the cell once again, it is showing the value correctly as missing here, right? So this is all about basically treating the missing values. Now how about summarizing missing values? And we can do that by writing a particular piece of code, which is like we can type it like, first of all let me create some cells. Okay, so here we can summarize it by using a command called data is null. Okay, and then .sum, and then press shift enter, right? So you can see the summary of how many missing values are there in each individual column, right? So you can see the PID has 1 missing value, as street number has 2, street name doesn't have any missing value, so and so, right? And there are other times when we need to check when we need to see if we have any missing values at all in this data frame. Okay, so the way we do it is, so instead of is sum, we will type values dot n. Okay, then press shift enter once again, and then you can see here it is telling us the boolean value is true. That means there are missing values in at least one column. Okay, so this is the way we do it. Now the question arises, what to do with these missing values before we build any machine learning models? Well, one approach is to delete the rows where there is a missing values, okay, or where there are any missing values. It is, however, not advisable because these missing data might contain, some crucial information. So we need to figure out a better idea. And as a matter of fact, there is another idea, there is another idea to either replace the missing value with a mean or median value. Okay, so I will show you both of the possibilities here. So that is, how can we impute any missing value with a mean value, as well as how can we impute a missing value with the median values. So for imputing the mean values, I'm going to use a library called scikit-learn or sklearn, right? And there is a sub library called pre-processing. So there is a library inside the library scikit-learn called pre-processing. And for the median, we will calculate it using function. So let's go ahead. So let me create few more cells here. Okay, now here what I'm going to do is, I'm going to basically include this library which I told you here, scikit-learn or sklearn. Okay, so from sklearn dot pre-processing import imputer. Okay, and here basically what I'm doing is, I'm basically importing an imputer class from sklearn, which is a fantastic library to make machine learning models, and pre-processing is a sub-library which contains several classes and methods to pre-process the data. So let's create an object of this imputer class first, and I will name that as Impute. Okay, so Impute is equals to imputer. I'm invoking the imputer class here, and then the missing values, okay, equals to nan. So then not a number. Strategy would be mean. Okay, because obviously I'm planning to impute the missing values with the mean value of, so that's why their strategy is chosen as mean, and the missing values are nan here. Okay, and then there is a third parameter which is axis equals to 0. Okay, so here NA is, as I told you, NaN is nothing but missing value denoted by NaN in the data set, and axis equals to 0 represents column here, because why we are mentioning axis equals to 0, because we are performing operations on a column basically. So let's fit this imputer class. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is, so impute, I will say impute, also impute dot, so I'm fitting it here, and data, and let's say I'm planning to do it for another column called square feet. Okay, and since we are imputing the values, so for this column, so I need to basically define or I basically need to store the missing values in this particular column. So let me do it by doing this. Okay, so because I need to refer a specific column, because obviously I want to change the missing values of I want to impute the missing values of this particular column only. So I need to mention the column name here. So this is the data set, and this is the column name for which I want to impute the missing values with mean values. Okay, and similarly I want to do it I want to basically I fitted it first, and then now I want to transform this. Okay, all right. So transform method will replace the missing values with the mean values. Okay, so now let's see the data here. Okay, so folks, it looks like there is some issue here. So let me do one thing here. Rather than specifying it for individual column, a single column, in order to avoid these kind of errors, let's do one thing. Let me comment out this section. Okay, all right, and I wrote a piece of code which is this one. Okay, so here what I'm trying to do is I'm kind of splitting this data set into two parts. One is creating a feature matrix, okay, which has all the columns except the last column, and the y which contains the last column value. Okay, now what I'm trying to do here is I'm going to basically impute the missing value for this column as street number. Okay, rather than square feet, let me refer this particular column. Let me impute the missing values for these two rows, this third row as well as the seventh row, okay, with the mean for this street number column. So the way I can do is through this particular piece of code. So everything remains same. This only what I did is I just split up this data into two parts. One is this. Okay, this is the X, which contains the feature matrix, and this is Y. Okay, and what I'm trying to do here is I'm just going to impute the missing values with the mean for these two values, row values. Okay, and that's why I have mentioned here one, so all the rows, and this is the column which is 1:2. So 1:2 means the second column. Okay, here, and let me basically see the values of this particular column, which is street number. Okay, so how can we see? So 1:2. I press shift and run, and here you can see that the values are replaced by the NA and as well as the blank value, which were the missing values, are replaced by the mean values. Okay, so here you can see that these two values are replaced by mean. Okay, so this was about how to replace the missing values or impute the missing values with the mean. Okay, now let me show you how to replace or impute the missing values with median value. Okay, so let's create few cells first. Okay, and in this case what I'm trying to do is I'm going to impute the missing values of number of bedrooms column with median. Okay, so let me create function here. So first of all, let me so I will be using data frame, and then num bedrooms, and then dot median here. Okay, and then what I'm trying to do here is, so I'm going for this particular column only, and then I will fill the NA values with median. Okay, first of all, let me do one thing. Let me see the data first. Here, so num bedrooms, there are 3 NaN values, right? Correct. And here fill.ina with median, and then in place parameter as true. Okay, so let's press shift enter again. So the data, let's see the data once again. It looks like some issue here. Okay, so bedrooms are none. Looks like I'm doing some mistake here. Oh yes, I'm doing this mistake here. So I need not to refer an individual column here. I need not to store over there. But okay, so let's rerun this cell once again. Perfect. Now we can see that the missing values has been replaced by basically the median values. You can see that earlier there were NaN values, not a number values here, and now it has been replaced by median values. Okay, so there was some little bit of hiccup here. I misstated. In fact, I wrote one piece of line extra here. So this is the way we do it. Okay, so folks, to conclude, we learned about missing values, factors contributing these missing values, as well as different ways we can identify and handle missing values in this particular section or video. Okay, so just a quick question: have you used any particular method to impute missing values? Majority of times. Please share your comments, or views in the comment section given below. We would like to hear your experiences. And if you're watching this video and you are not already a subscriber to our channel, consider clicking that little subscribe button. In case you have already subscribed to our channel, then click on bell icon to receive the notification whenever I will release a new video. So thanks for hanging out with us, guys. I will be covering next topic in the upcoming videos, so keep on watching. Thank you.